This is why galactic contact has been spoken of and will take place when humanity is at a time to receive this. It is to help humanity have a perspective that goes beyond the stories that have been told, so that they are able to see themselves as something bigger, something more than only the stories, something far beyond what their mind can construct.
They said humanity is at a time of reckoning, and a reckoning is a facing of oneself and all of one's creations. And they said everything that's been created in fear is going to need to be recreated in a higher way, which is really what they're teaching now, how that's done, how a world is altered through consciousness.
There is a very important portal that has been opened this year that is going to change the entire course of humanity path. There are many global events that will depend on how humanity chooses to connect to, or how humans choose to connect to each other and to themselves on an individual level.
As we said, the last 200 years, last 100 years, how life has changed for humanity on this planet. You have your technology that dramatically changed human existence. People get upset about this technology. You're the user. If you're too far into the past or even thinking about the future, you're not focused on this present moment.
Arguably the most important relationship that we have is to be with ourselves first.
I had the gift of a commitment I made to God. When you do that, you just push through.
Earth right now is going through an ascension process. It just means there's an increase in the resonant frequency, so much so that you will cross a dimensional barrier. Dimensions are structured like sports, like games. They have fixed rules to them. And it's just a unique experience to go into a particular dimension and explore it.
How do you see humanity's current consciousness path?
The three guides will come through. We see it as a constant unfoldment, an evolution of where humanity has been and where humanity can go. There are infinite spirals that can be taken, like a staircase that goes up infinitely, or goes sideways, or goes downways. It depends on your perspective. Humanity can have and take any stair that it wants, any path that it wishes it can take. We are here to guide humanity toward the spiral that is reaching to what you would consider to be the highest evolution, the highest unfoldment, the path that brings humanity closer to their true nature, to God, to the Creator, to the All.
What signs do you see that we are actually moving towards a higher consciousness?
The choice for humanity to consider themselves to be in their heart more often than not. There is an extreme distortion when it comes to feelings and emotions, but this in fact is a path of evolution. It is a step toward what humanity needs to understand, which is that the heart is the most powerful piece of the body. The heart is what can guide humanity and guide each individual to their highest timeline and to the highest timeline for the collective. The heart holds secrets, and the heart holds power. And understanding the feelings, understanding the emotions, is how to understand the emotional power of the heart, and the energetic power of the heart, and the language of the heart, which all of humanity must learn to speak if there is to be ultimate unity and collaboration on the planet. This is what we see is the step that humanity has taken, the perspective to orient towards feelings, towards the heart, more than the mind, more than the choices that dictate or govern the animal body or instincts.
How can we contribute to humanity's consciousness evolution?
By learning to speak the language of your own heart, by learning to understand what lies in your heart and what is controlling you, making you, in certain ways, act or behave or make certain choices. Understanding how this operates in your own being at your own level, and then making a different choice, making a choice that is part of the contribution to the whole, that is beyond yourself, is how you can contribute to humanity. Not making a choice that only thinks of oneself, that only says that I am at the center, but rather that I am is the center. This is how each individual can move forward, can contribute, and each being finds their own way toward this I am presence. Each being finds the path and energy that is most aligned to them. Some find it in nature, in the woods. They feel the presence of I am. They are beyond their human story when they are with the trees or when they are swimming in the ocean. Others find it in acts of service, by volunteering, by working with groups or individuals. They become larger than themselves. Their story does not become the most important thing. But there are other aspects of human life that force humans to look only at their own story, to be very self-centered or self-focused on the story of the ego rather than on the power or feelings of the heart.
What challenges do you foresee on this path of human consciousness evolution?
The unwillingness to move beyond the self-centered story. The choice to only act on that which is animalistic or deeply buried in the wounds of humanity. Each being, each human carries the wounds of the collective. Each being carries the potential to cause harm, to be enraged, to care without thinking, to think of others in a way that is violent or to act aggressively toward. This is in the potential for each human, and this is where humanity is evolving out of. But those who choose to grasp onto these aspects of humanity, those who are consumed by these parts of their ego, they are unwilling or unable to see beyond that, and it is a matter of fear. If humanity chooses fear because they are afraid, then they will not be able to move beyond this. And it is a very tricky and complex situation. It is fear coming up against fear. Humanity tries to use fear against fear. They try to fight against fighting, to have war against war. It is contradictory. It is unhelpful. It ultimately creates more of the same, which you understand at this point in your evolution as a being. You can see this, you can feel this, and many of those who are viewers or who are also in this space understand and see this. But it is a matter of the collective choosing and aligning to agree that fear will not be fought with fear, that war will not be fought with war, that will ultimately make the change.
What is your vision for humanity's future at a higher consciousness?
That humanity will come together and recognize their brotherhood, their sisterhood, their kinship, their one family line as part of the larger tree that is humanity, that is the collective. This must happen, but each being must see themselves as part of the whole. This is why our teachings stress seeing yourself beyond who you are, beyond the story that you have been told, not only in your own head, but in your family and in your society, in your culture, and indeed on the earth as a whole. You must see yourself beyond all of these stories as part of something greater. This is why galactic contact has been spoken of and will take place when humanity is at a time to receive this. It is to help humanity have a perspective that goes beyond the stories that have been told, so that they are able to see themselves as something bigger, something more than only the stories, something far beyond what their mind can construct. And this is why it has been challenging for humanity to understand and see themselves as a creator. They must have some conceptualization of a creator. There are those who are still out of touch with this energy and who do not recognize it quite yet. They are coming around, but it is slow. Others who do understand this energy and understand that there is something beyond themselves, they try to understand it from their perspective. They humanize the creator, and they cannot see how it is bigger than themselves. But contact with beings that are far beyond any stories they have been told will help humanity to see themselves beyond what they have been told.
Why is there increased global turmoil and division at this moment in time?
There are forces that would rather see humanity get to the place where they are unable to move, to be in a place where they are continuing on the same path that they have seen, because again, it is fear against fear. The forces hold fear. They carry fear. They operate from this place of fear. And what is spoken of little is that they too are evolving. They are, as many have compared them, like a virus on the planet. Viruses help organisms to evolve, and viruses also evolve. The hope, the plan, is that these beings, this virus that is collectively over the planet, will choose to evolve into something beyond a virus, beyond what it has been. When humanity is able to see themselves beyond what they have been, then this virus also has the opportunity to do so. At this time, the virus is mutating, it is changing to be even more destructive, even more chaotic, because that is the nature of viruses, and it is a reflection of what occurs in the universe as what happens in the body. This is what is taking place on this planet, and it will continue until the greater force that houses the virus, humanity as a collective, chooses something different, chooses to say, I am greater than this virus. I am greater than the story this virus has made me believe. When this takes place, there is a unification that occurs. That is when humanity will move beyond where they have been, where division can no longer create division, where separation can no longer create separation, because it is no longer a sickness in humanity. It is something that is looked at and let go of easily.
Who or what are those forces that you're speaking of?
Energies that have taken root on this planet when humanity was at a weak point in its time. As spoken of, the cycle of darkness that humanity entered into, there was a point of weakness. And just as when the body gets weak, viruses enter, so too did this energy enter into the plane, the sphere of humanity, and infect it with its same mindset. Because this energy, which are encapsulated in various beings, is also trying to understand itself. It is trying to feed the infinite whole that is its heart. It is trying to understand how it can come to a place where it feels full without taking. That is why this same mindset, this same virus has infected humanity in the same way, taking and never feeling full.
How can we support new systems aligning with higher consciousness?
To bring higher consciousness into these systems first. If the system is made from a story that is based on fear, then it is not a new system. It is perpetuating the same story that has been told again and again. And it means not that you are not addressing the same problems or issues that are arising. It means you are using a new mind, a higher perspective to address these problems. As mentioned, bringing in ancient wisdom to bring in light to ancient problems.
Can you share the timeline for humanity's consciousness shift?
This is somewhat unknown. We see that it is near 2030. Major shifts will occur within the consciousness of humanity, but it is ultimately a collective choice. There are many changes that will take place even up into 2050 and 2075. There are many shifts that will take place in humanity, and they will continue down this path, but there is also free will. There is ultimately sovereignty. Those who are willing and able to see it and claim what they wish to see in the world will progress this timeline at a faster rate. That is our work. That is part of why we have chosen to come at this time, to quicken the evolutionary pace of humanity.
Are there any events that will indicate this consciousness shift in the coming years?
There are multiple choices that may be made for humanity, choices that will lead towards a chaotic unfoldment versus an awakening unfoldment. The awakening is much more peaceful, although there are systems that will still fall. There will still be some chaos as there is a shift or change, as it were, but humanity will be able to shift and change and align more easily when their minds and their hearts are on board. This is why the stories must change, why the attention must shift. in individuals in order to make this awakening much easier, much more simple, and much more easeful for all of humanity. If humanity does not align or the stories do not shift, then the awakening process will be rather abrupt, like turning the lights on in a very dark room. There are aspects of this taking place already. Lights are coming on slowly but surely in various places across humanity, in various systems that humanity uses. They are waking up, and this will continue, but for the ultimate shift to take place, the collective must choose to start a new story. The collective must choose that they wish to have the lights on rather than living in the darkness of ignorance. This we see as a possibility taking place in the year 2037. There are major events that will lead to this year that will allow humanity to decide and to determine which path they wish to take. There is much to unfold before this year happens, but there is a crossroads at this time.
What crossroads do you mean at this moment this year?
At this time, humanity is choosing which game they wish to play. This game is going to determine what choices are able or offered later down the line.
And do you have any final words to our audience?
We wish to assist humanity in this evolution. We wish to help humanity open to what is possible to them. We offer and ask you what is possible for you in this moment. What have you not considered or not imagined that you can begin to imagine now, without the story telling you that it is not possible? What do you wish to see in humanity? Bring this vision into your imagination and think of it every day. Allow it to be what guides you. Allow it to be why you make your choices when you wake up. That is how you will begin to build a new world. To see the world new means that you have a new vision that is guiding you.
Thank you so much. Is there anybody else that would like to come forward before we finish our session?
We wish to remind humanity that in the year 2027, galactic contact will begin to take place more openly. We are coming through only to remind you that it is far easier and will be a much smoother process if you choose to align to cosmic energies at this time. They are readily and easily available on the planet. There are many beings throughout the galaxy that are bringing in their own energy, and some of you have connected to this energy, whether in your heart or in a feeling or in a channeling experience. You have been able to feel the cosmic energies and the shifts that are taking place. We welcome you to align yourself to these energies, as it will help acclimate your body to the changes that will occur in 2027.
What do the guides have to say about this kind of spiritual battle for humanity?
Well, they don't.
They don't talk about it at all?
They don't talk about a battle.
Okay.
And I think, because when we do that, we move back into this idea of separation and division, which is not what they talk about at all.
Okay.
I do think that there's a massive change occurring, and the resistance to the change is what you're really speaking to.
Correct.
And that's real. But the personality structure, the guides say, who we think we are, and this is individually and collectively, knows itself entirely through a lens of separation, which is how we've experienced everything. The guides I work with say, your idea of history and your idea of who you are is based on a false concept that you're separate from source.
Right.
And so that's how we've operated. And the personality self knows itself entirely through historical data. What was, what's been. So they say we've been at war for so long that we cannot imagine a world without one. And I think that the danger perhaps is overlaying that on spirit as well and looking for the fight. I don't know that it's a fight. I think as much as anything else it's a choice. What I hear is everything is changing, and everything that's had its basis in fear, which is separation, you can call it whatever you want, that's going to have to be addressed. So the paradigm of war, they just lectured on war for a full day yesterday.
Okay.
In this class that I was in, and about our reliance on separation and our need to be right and our need to justify. But to go back to what you were saying, when the very first book was dictated, which was I Am the Word, the very first book signing I did, which was in the old Bodhi Tree bookstore in L.A., and there were like 5 people there. Nobody knew who I was, and I'd never done a book signing. And I read a little from the book, and this woman in the first row, one of the 5, raised her hand and said, "Oh, this sounds like what the Galactic Federation of so-and-so are saying, and what do your guides say about those evil aliens?"
Oh, my Lord.
And what was funny, because they hadn't been, I wasn't channeling, but the guys jumped right in, and they said, "Isn't it bad enough that you can't get along here? You have to vilify the rest of the universe." So we have to stop projecting a paradigm, I think, because then we end up back in this black and white, right and wrong thing, and then nobody wins. I don't think anybody wins. So if you can get to the place where you can realize the inherent divine, the inherent divine, that which must always be there and already be there, that's when things change. So the guides say, what you damn damns you back. What you put in darkness or who you put in darkness calls you to the darkness. And I think that can be true with any kind of tribalism, even with the good people and the bad people and what we want to think in those terms. So I don't think that things change that way. They guides have said, we have been at war since somebody picked up the first rock and threw it. We've been doing this, and we've been doing it for so long that we assume it's always going to be there. And in this lecture yesterday, they used this new metaphor. I'd never heard it before. They said, imagine you're in a room with a big painting hung on the wall, and it's extraordinary violence. And no matter what you're doing in the room, your experience in that room is informed by that picture. Even if you're trying to ignore it, it is there. And they say pretty much that is the world that you've been living in. Until we collectively move to a level of consciousness where war is not an option, we're going to have it. Because war finally is an idea that's been enacted. And because we've always had it, we think it's supposed to be there. And that goes back to the thing the guides said about the personality self knows itself through history. We can't imagine a world without war, really, because we think of war, we think of peace as not fighting for a little while. So fighting is still part of the equation. The picture is still hanging on the wall. So they're talking about how we are all lifting to a level of consciousness where this is changed. It's altered. When war is no longer an option, we're not going to seek to justify it or find ways to create with that or get what we want from it. They've got a lot of opinions on this stuff. So when it goes to a battle between light and dark, that's not how they talk about it. They don't talk about things in absolutes that way. They talk about things as in gradation. They do talk about evil, which they talk about as being the intent to do harm, which is a very simple definition. But for the most part, our biggest problem, they say, is our denial of the inherent divine. And I'm stressing the word inherent because they say you can't make anything holy. It already is, but you can deny the divine in anything. And we do, and we have. So they've kind of said, and you can shut me up if I'm going on.
Oh, please.
They say it's kind of like we're all born into a swimming pool that somebody peed in before we got here.
That's why I love the guides.
but it's like that's how we know our world. We don't know anything other than what we've had.
So is it kind of like you just said a little bit ago that you couldn't conceive of the life that you live.
Yeah.
I couldn't conceive the life that I'm living right now. Is it the case that humanity cannot conceive of a life that is without war? Not we're quiet for a while, but without war, where we're peaceful, where we cooperate, where we all connect to the divine and understand that's inherent in life. That's rudimentary.
They say, yes, that's what will be happening. I don't think that this is some, rainbows and unicorns kind of scenario. I really don't. I mean, I'll give you an odd example because I was doing a 5-day thing out on Maui recently where I live. It was a big retreat. And the guides started talking about how our idea of God is wrong-minded. And any idea of God finally is wrong-minded. It's the best that we can do, given where we come from, you know.
Right.
But we're still informing the idea of God as a loving God, a punishing God, a God that's going to smite those people, send these ones to hell, all of those things. And so the idea was of moving to what exists beyond that idea that we've created, our idea of source or God, to what is actually already there. And they say it is. It is. It is. And they talked about how we inform everything with meaning, and everything that we see has the meaning that was primarily given to it by those who came before us. This is a good thing. This is a bad thing. This is a fine watch. That's a crappy watch. They both tell time, but we invest in the meaning. And I had an experience after that lecture where I was walking around and everything just was. And the meaning wasn't attached to it. This is a beautiful day. It was a day. It was beautiful. But everything was what it was. It just was. And here was the really trippy part for me. I got it, that it was all source. It was all God, you know, in different levels of expression. You know, the guides have said there is one note sung in the entire universe that is in manifestation as all things. And all of these things are operating at different levels of tone or vibration in a scale. So when we talk about evil or, you know, the dark forces or whatever that is, we're talking low vibration. And then you can go to the higher. Now, we're the ones who decide what is good and what is bad, for the most part. What's good to you and I may be bad to somebody watching this show who doesn't believe in any of this stuff.
Right.
You know, and that's perfectly fine. It's subjective, I suppose. But when you think of reality as an octave of tone, and that's how they describe it, high notes and low notes, and they're all being played, and they're chords, and they're things, and there are things that we see. It's only one octave. They say that when you move up in vibration to what they call the next octave, they call it the upper room. That's how they describe it. Fear is not operative there at that level of tone. And so you're not spiritually bypassing and pretending something bad didn't happen or hard didn't happen, but you're beginning to have an experience of yourself without the mandate of fear to be what confirms or informs one's choices. And we're doing that all the time without even knowing it, I suspect. And then the world, I think, is changed. And so that's how they teach this. The battle stuff, you know, the challenge with even the term spiritual warrior that people like to bandy about is that you got to be looking for the problem. You know,
you can't have a warrior without a war.
That's pretty much it. And so you're going to find one. So I think that there are ways of addressing the things that are hard and challenging, and you can call them war and poverty and, you know, and systems of control, whatever they may be. And I think that's all happening now. And it's been happening, and I think it continues to happen. When the guides dictated a book called The Book of Truth, which I think it was right before the Trump-Clinton election was this time, and they said right before in that book, and they said, okay, what's about to happen now is that everything that's been buried is going to be revealed. It's going to be a process of exhumation. I mean, this is dated, so it's right before a lot of things happened, including a lot of movements and a lot of awakening to past, you know, traumas. Yeah. And they said, but if you imagine, and this is happening at the individual level and at the level of the collective as well, they said if you imagine your backyard is suddenly an archaeological dig, and things are being exhumed from 5 years ago and 5,000 years ago or 50, it's going to look like a mess. And they say the purpose of this exhumation is not to blame and not to rage, it's to see, because nothing is healed or brought to the light until it is first seen. And the idea of seeing something without informing it with the edicts of a particular culture or religion or doctrine is seeing in truth. Now, the guides say we think of truth as my personal truth, her personal truth, and truth as being subjective. But they say what is true is always true. And that's what brings you back to the idea of source, or the one-note song, when you can see the inherent divine in what was created in distortion or fear or anger. You can actually shift the thing to begin to operate at a higher tone.
And when you were saying that, you were looking at a day, you were in a day, and it was a beautiful day to your point of view. But for me, sometimes a sunny day is nice, but it could be hot. Yeah. I sometimes like overcast days where the weather is nice. But so it all depends on the point of view, people's preferences, and also their programming that they grew up with.
But this was different. You see, this wasn't about that. That's what was so different about it. It just was.
It was just a day.
No, it just...
How do you explain what?
I can say this to you. Okay, so I'm sitting here with Alex, who I like and I have history with, and I'm sitting in the studio, and I'm thinking about what we're doing, and that's one level of my being engaged. On another level, and I'm not going to say this well, they might have to come in and explain what I'm trying to say. We're just being here.
Oh, we're in the moment.
But we're being here without the meanings that I would attach to things, like I like your sweater, or all that stuff. It just was. And for me, the only experience that was so different was I got it in some level, what they were talking about sort of how things have been. They say we're operating in a museum. Everything that we encounter was named by those who came before us and has the meaning that the culture has given it. And so we end up, without intending to replicate the old stuff, always, including how we fight and how we solve things. So you go to this other level, you see the divine self, what they call the monad or the God within. The monad does not know itself through historical data. It is not bound by time and space. So the claim that the guides work with in their teachings, behold, I make all things new, is the realization of what actually is outside of how it's been decided upon by those who came before us, or what we think it's supposed to be. It's a very different way of being in an experience.
It's very interesting the way you look at that. With the wars that are going on right now, and this old way of looking at things, I love the idea that you're saying that everything that we've touched, this is called a book.
Yeah.
Because someone called it a book.
Yeah.
In our culture. Yeah. In our culture. In other cultures, it's called other things. But this is not a great example, but a lot of the things that, like what's going on in some of these wars, those are thousands, some of them are thousands of years old.
Yeah.
These arguments. Fighting over a patch of land that said, I did this or I did that, and that's mine. No, that's mine. No, what really happened was here. It's our land. That's your land. All that kind of stuff. And generationally, they wake up, and their kids are told, that guy's bad. We're good.
Yeah.
They did this, this, and this, but they never experienced any of it. And then it just it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because eventually you have so much hate for that person on the other side. One day they're going to do something, that's what they were talking about. And it's just kind of this vicious circle. We're trying to pull out of it, but it seems like it's going to take a minute.
I think it's going to take a minute.
Yeah.
And the guides have said, we can learn, if we want to, the futility of war by fighting until there's nobody left standing. We can do that if we want to. They say it's not going to happen. And this is what they say that gives me hope. They say humanity has decided at a higher level, at a collective level, that we're going to move beyond this, and that we have to do this in some ways for our survival as a species. And the species, they say, is shifting. We're going into this whole other level of experience. And it sounds far out, but and this isn't to make myself special, because I don't experience that, but things that are very ordinary to me now in terms of how I hear and feel and utilize my senses are things that I were told were impossible when I was growing up. And I'm not that special, and because we all have capacity for this. And I think part of what allows for this is our willingness to trust. And ideally, I suppose, trust in something greater, something higher, something beyond the personality that wants to get its way no matter what. one of the first things that I heard in channeling, and I always have to say I'm 99% sure that I heard it in channeling because I wrote it down on a piece of paper because I didn't understand it. And I was having a hard time when I heard it. And I heard freedom will come, or freedom comes when the throne relinquishes its king. And I thought, what the hell does that mean? And now I totally get what it means. Who's running the show?
Right.
What aspect of self? Is it the self that knows, truly knows, and they say knows means realizes, that everybody is of source? Or is it the one that says off with their heads? Or I have to get my way at the cost of it, that there's not enough and I better grab it? You know, borders are ideas.
Right.
That's what they're just ideas that have been concretized in form.
Yeah, when you look out of space, from outer space, you look at
they're not there.
There's no big lines.
Nope.
It's all just. Yeah.
And a country is an idea, you know, and you know all of everything that guides say everything was first idea. And when you go back to the first idea and you go to source, or what allows for that idea to be enacted or made into form, then you go back to the source of all things. And that's when things change. That's really the alchemy that occurs, not by trying to fix or stamp out or eradicate or justify or fight or blame. It's actually coming from a different level of consciousness, which is how the guides say, they say that's how a world is made new. That's their teaching.
What key changes do you see for humanity's future?
Well, there are massive changes that you are in the throes of right now. And sometimes that's hard for you to really see because you are in the thick of it. You don't have any perspective. And as you go through the course of probably the next 2.5 years, you're going to find some radical change on the planet. Now, Earth right now is going through an ascension process. It just means there's an increase in the resonant frequency, so much so that you will cross a dimensional barrier. Dimensions are structured like sports, like games. They have fixed rules to them. And it's just a unique experience to go into a particular dimension and explore it. 3D has very fixed rules of the game to it. You've got the perception of time, the idea that time is linear, that you move from past into present and then into future, that you've got duality. There is light, dark, good, bad, right, wrong. And, there's a big extreme between those poles of duality where you're moving into. You are aware that you are part of source energy, part of all that is. You can, in any given moment, perceive yourself as being separate from source energy or part of the whole, part of the collective. And that is different than where you are right now, because right now, most of you have no awareness of your true divine nature, of that deep, deep connection that you have. There is a certainty to it in the fifth dimension, but you are able to act as if you know you are the actor playing the character. Right now, most of you have forgotten that you are the actor playing the character. You just think the character is real. And this is what's going on. And then in the fifth dimension, you experience all things at once. Past, present, and future are one. They're just different frequencies that you focus your consciousness on to have the experience. But because the third dimension and the fifth dimension were so vast, you created an entire dimensional range to explore, to maneuver yourself there. So really you're in the fourth dimension, but you project 3D rules of the game onto 4D or 5D rules onto it. And you can go back and forth. And this is what you're in the middle of. And as you go through the next 2.5 years, you're going to start moving more into that fifth dimensional energy until you can sustain it. And at that point, you will actually move into the fifth dimension, and that is a permanent state of being. You've got to alter your chemical structure, your physical body, to go along for the ride. And right now, this is a grand experiment. You've been given genetic material from thousands of worlds to seed your planet. And along with that genetic material comes all of the emotions, all of the knowledge and wisdom of those species that becomes available to you very easily. And there are many beings who are observing what's going on because they are connected genetically to you as a planet. They may not be perhaps species that have donated genes that went into humans, but rather maybe aquatic life. But they are still able to access the library that is Mother Earth to learn how to work through particular issues that you may be struggling with here on this planet. And we call this the grand experiment. We also call Earth the planet of emotion. If you want to learn how to explore emotion, how to handle emotion, this is where you come, because you've got such a wide range. And the beautiful thing about that is that it allows you so many possible combinations of working through challenges. And there are planets and worlds that don't have all this variation. And so it makes it very difficult to make these shifts and adjustments. They're hard shifts, where here it's more subtle and you can maneuver yourself in a much easier fashion. But as you go through this ascension process, one of the things that you are mastering is compassion. Because it's so dense here and it is so challenging, you are able to access compassion because you've been there, you've done that, you've all had those challenges. You felt that heartache, that pain, that struggle, that strife, that you are able to hold a very intense level of compassion for others. And that is the gift that you share with the universe, because there are some beings who are not able to access this frequency, or if they can, it's certainly not in the way that humans can and will. And so as you go through the ascension process, you radically alter the universal game. So that's the importance of what's going on. That's why there are so many ETs who are present, who are watching, who are assisting you. And the next several years bring with it the opportunity for great change. But you are in the middle of what we call frequency wars. And that began in 2019. And you've got a couple more years before you move out of that. And it is a vying for control over your vibrational essence, the frequency of your thoughts, your emotions, and your physical structure. So as you learn how to master your responses, the vibrations that you live in other words, the frequencies that you sustain, are you in anger all the time? Are you in a sense of grace? Are you in a sense of gratitude? Are you in a sense of joy? Is that the energy that you put out, or are you frustrated? So having an awareness of that and coming back to the frequencies that you want to emit can create radical change on your planet. And right now you are becoming more and more aware of the game that is being played out on the planet. There are beings who have kind of been controlling and manipulating things on this planet for the better part of about 40,000 years. And really quite hardcore within the last 12. So you're beginning to see this. You're beginning to become aware of the game that's being played, and you're taking back your power. You're deciding that, all right, I've been living under this illusion. I haven't really been thinking about, oh, is this what I want or not? You've just kind of been going along with the status quo, and now you're questioning. You're deciding what it is that you want as you build and move forward. And that is a radical shift in mindset and in what you will create as a human species. Compassion is the gift that you share with the universe. So it is affording you the opportunity over the next 2 years to really master that energy. When you get into 2026, the probability of having connections with the ET community in a very direct way is there. We don't make a lot of predictions, but this one is so strong that we feel confident in sharing it with you. When we make predictions, or when people make predictions, your focus on that as a reality impacts the probability of that becoming a reality. And we want you to have free will. We want you not to be influenced so much in that regard of something coming in the future. We want to influence you in terms of you deciding the energy that you want to project and creating your own future. So when we look at this, it's quite strong. And how that is going to play out exactly, we are not sure. There's still some variables there, but it is quite strong that you'll have ET contact in a very direct way, in a very global way that is beyond a shadow of a doubt, and will become part of your reality, your understanding of yourself as part of the galactic community. And when that happens, it radically alters your game. Beings on the other side, those ETs, some are physicals, some are non-physicals. We have been standing back a bit, waiting for you to find your voice, to stand in your power before we showed up. Because if we showed up and you weren't in your power, you'd still be playing the same game out, just interdimensionally. You know, right now you're giving your power away to your officials and some ETs who are behind those officials. So we're waiting for you to stand in your power, because otherwise it generates too much fear, and that is contrary to where we want you to go. So by then, you will have accessed more of your personal power, which will then be easier for you in terms of standing in your power interdimensionally, so to speak. At that point, when ETs show up, you will look at your energy systems in a very different way. How you relate to your planet, how you relate to each other, how you think about yourselves. You won't so much think about yourselves in terms of being American or Canadian or Brazilian or Australian. You'll think of yourselves as being human.
What global events do you see coming for humanity in the coming years that will shift our consciousness?
The global events that are coming, well, dear ones, there is a very important portal that has been opened this year that is going to change the entire course of humanity's path. There are many global events that will depend on how humanity chooses to connect to, or how humans choose to connect to each other and to themselves on an individual level. It is so important that you are connecting to your heart and that you are understanding that everything that is happening, it is happening for the evolution and ascension of your planet. There is the possibility of contact with beings of light from other galaxies. And there is also the possibility of the end of wars once and for all on your planet. We want you to know that the reason why we say possibility, it is because it is going to depend on each and every single one of you that inhabit this planet. There is also going to be a change in the way that your money system works. And we would like to invite you all to make sure that you are educating yourself on all the ways, the possible ways that this may happen. And we want to bring this information from a place of love, information, and light, education. Please do not fear. Do not feed information of fear, because fear will disconnect you from your heart. And there is great importance, like never before, for you all to be connected to your heart. And remember, dear ones, that you are so guided, so supported.
Could you explain the process of a dimensional shift in the terms of human understanding?
The dimensional shift happens first and foremost within each individual. As you shift your understanding and your being, your beliefs, your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, who you are being, your vibration, your frequency, you change, you shift dimensions within. And because your external reality is a projection of who you are being, therefore, you will also shift the external dimensional state. This is one answer that we can give you. So in order to see the dimensional shift, how is it that you are shifting that within?
How might our spiritual awakening affect our day-to-day lives and relationships?
Well, as shared by Rubia earlier, spiritual awakening can indeed be a very traumatizing experience, if you could say. And it can change the person's life in many ways, which means it can affect relationships, because you may not, none of what exists in your life may make sense anymore. You may want to change countries. You may want to change relationships. You may want to reconnect with others that you may not have connected in a long time. And spiritual awakening is actually happening to a lot more humans on your planet at this time. Hence, very important to educate yourself and know that you are not going crazy, that you are just shifting a lot very fast. So we say, be careful what you wish for, because a lot of the things that you are wishing for will require you to go through a spiritual awakening.
Are there any specific signs or symptoms of a shift in consciousness that we should be aware of?
Yes, there are many signs. And some of them are not giving so much importance to things that in the past you may have given, especially those that are material. You may feel that in the past you may have been obsessed with material things, with money. And as you are going through a spiritual awakening, you will see the importance of it for your survival, but no more as a priority. You will also notice how important connection with other humans are, because there are many spiritual beings, spiritual humans on your planet that say, I don't want to be here. Why was I born into this planet? I am a star seed. I'm not from here. Why did I choose to come here? Dear ones, we want you to know that your soul did choose to come here indeed. And we invite you to heal anything that may be on the way of you connecting with yourself deeper and connecting with loved ones. We invite you to go out there, create communities, because your spiritual awakening will call you to do that. It will call you to connect with others, to meet others where they are at. These are the two main things that you may feel in spiritual awakening. What may happen also is you may have health problems that you've never had before. And that is because it's going to put you on a different path. You may need to ask for help more.
How can we help others who are struggling with their own spiritual awakening process?
It is important to ask them questions and ask, what is it that you want? And how is it that I can help? And make sure that you are showing them the light. Because for a lot of people, when they are right in the depths of their spiritual awakening, they cannot see the light. They cannot see happiness anymore. They can only see the darkness, the sadness, and many of them want to give up. So it's to show them the light, to give them hope, to be there for them, and say, everything will be okay. We promise you. And to continue supporting them. And very important, do not feed on their victim stories, because their victim stories may take them down a dark night of the soul. And that is not the path of a spiritual awakening. That is not the purpose of it.
Is everyone capable of experiencing this shift in consciousness, or is it exclusive to certain individuals?
Everyone is capable of experiencing it, although not all choose it.
What are the potential challenges humanity might face during this shift in consciousness?
You are already seeing many of the challenges. As you've been shifting consciousness for many, many years, and many of the challenges are disagreement, division, wars, and that is problems on your individual and personal life, problems with others, financial problems, health problems. It is nothing different than what you have not seen, although it just may be aggravated as it may happen on a larger scales.
Are there any specific practices or behaviors that can facilitate or accelerate our spiritual awakening?
We invite you to start, as Ruby likes to teach now, start from your bottom chakras. We invite you to let go a little bit of the idea of activating your crown, opening up your third eye. And before you continue to do so, or you do so, it starts to heal your connection to yourself, to others, to Gaia through your base chakra, healing your childhood and ancestral experiences, healing trauma. It is so important, and regulating your nervous system, because then no matter what is thrown into your life, you will be able to manage it with more ease and grace, rather than having chaos and traumatizing experiences, because your human being, your ego, your mind, your body is not ready for it.
Can you talk about our fear of artificial intelligence, and what effect will it have on our evolution in humanity, and also our evolution in our spiritual growth?
Like everything, there will be a perception. As humans, you have duality, and you choose to have the perception of things as good and as bad. If you choose to look at artificial intelligence as good and use it for your highest good and the highest good of all, as you can see, it's already doing so much goodness to your planet. As many of you are able to apply it to your work, to things that you do on your day-to-day life, how you serve humanity. And of course, if there are humans that choose to use it with wrong intent, then there will be detrimental to some. And that is where fear comes. We want you to know that fear comes from the perception that you choose to have of certain things. And perception, a lot of the times you will not choose it. It's because you have it based on your programming, on your higher self, on your soul blueprint, on your ancestry. So know that your perception of something is creating more of it. And we understand that this may be a topic, a hot topic in your planet right now, as many people have very strong opinions, negative opinions about it. So we like to remind you that if it comes to fear, if you are afraid of it, what is the root cause of that fear? How else is that affecting your life? And please know that we are saying this as beings from another dimension, where the duality and the perception that you have does not exist. Therefore, the way that we perceive it and see it is different.
What are the potential challenges humanity might face during this huge shift in consciousness?
The challenges won't be much different from the ones you are already seeing. It may just be more aggravated, or it may be less aggravated, depending on how humanity will choose to keep moving forward with its ascension and evolution journey. And that is why we go back to talking about, once again, your heart consciousness and the connection to your heart. And we understand that at times it may be challenging to hear us talk about this. Even Ruby has been challenged about this. We invite you to trust and to ask more questions, and allow the questions to come through, so that you create better challenges for when they do come. One of the challenges that we can point out at this time is regarding contact with beings from other dimensions. The hope of many of humans is that that contact happens sooner rather than later. And we want you to know that it can be challenging if you are ready and if it does happen. Hence why it is so important that you are healing and that you are growing and connecting to your heart.
What can we do to create a more peaceful and harmonious world?
More love and acceptance. And to do so, you need to love and accept yourself more, because your external reality is in some way a projection of your internal state. So the more peace, the more acceptance, the more love you have within, the more you are projecting that from the inside out.
What you believe humanity's journey is going to be like over these next decade or so, and how can souls that are in this journey for the next decade or two deal with whatever tragedies or struggles or negative things that might seem to be going on around them, how they can transcend that to move forward in a positive way?
So no, on the planet Earth, there's always natural things that do happen that will continue, which you'll be made aware of instantaneously, as has been recent. And that continues. But to hold the thought that that is a natural event, which will span new ways of being on the planet where these events happen, new buildings of structures that are resistant to events such as fire, hurricane, tornado, and to be aware, to be prepared for such a thing to occur. And know if it is in an area where you live, there was a learning to be experienced if you were there. But oftentimes it could happen there and you're on vacation. It's not meant for you. So each individual recognizing the gifts and blessings, and we know that's difficult in those times, but the gifts and blessings that one receives from such an event. However, there are many changes in the world today that we've been speaking about for many years. That is the transformation of consciousness that is now changing your world in the sense of human species living on this planet as one body, you might say, not delineated from country to state, but as one. What we mean by this, it is a global community, a common unity of species. And there comes a consciousness with that oneness to be of assistance to each other and creative together. And so the ones feeling separate now will see that connectivity, not only technologically, but energetically, which is a gift you'll have in that knowing that there's not separateness between you. The structures of how one does life is changing as well. There's a global economic structure, there's global business structure, there's been control by certain individuals of these things, but the people will make the changes within that as well. There will not be that hierarchy as has been in the past because of this new dimensional awareness and the ability of each to be utilizing their own brilliance and mastery and genius in their lives to bring about a better world, collectively, collaboratively with each other.
Why are things feeling so sped up now? It's insane how fast time is going.
That's because there's no time. Mm-hmm. And it's a feeling, actually, and that you're ready for these changes. Note, as we said, the last 200 years, last 100 years, how life has changed for humanity on this planet. You have your technology that dramatically changed human existence.
And still is changing.
And will continue. Those innovations are daily now, because those coming on the planet now are ready to be those change agents. They have the minds and capacity to envision and create and bring forth what is to be next.
What is humanity's greatest challenge moving forward in this shift in consciousness?
Loving themselves.
That simple.
It sounds simple, hard to do. Because it's letting go of beliefs about you that are simply untrue, that have been carried along for centuries.
It seems like it's been, this kind of lie has been propagated to us again and again and again, generationally. Because when you have a child loves itself until it's been told not to love itself, or that there's something wrong with it. And then that continues to grow into adulthood. And we have to find our way back to that childlike place. Is that correct?
Yes. And so often there's been much judgment about how a child expresses itself on the planet. And so there have been labels given children to define who they are. Mm-hmm. We would say that's inappropriate. Mm-hmm. It's the judgments you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And most of those come in wanting to control behaviors that are uncomfortable for adults.
Is there a reason why there seems to be such an uptick, at least a feeling of uptick with children with special needs, children on the spectrum, coming into this world? There seems to be, it used to be one out of, thousands, and now it's one out of 48 or 100 or something like that have special needs or are on the spectrum. And they're generally, from what I've seen, some of the most loving souls on the planet.
Some are very high functioning, yes. High intelligence, most are. Mm-hmm. And so this has been, for some time, these souls coming forward to birth this new world. But there has been this identification and labeling that has occurred. Mm-hmm. And it's just a shift of awareness and the ability within them, and their sensitivity to the environment is very great because of their mind functionality, their ability to function at a higher frequency.
What role will AI play in our spiritual evolution as we continue to move forward, since it's becoming so prevalent in our society?
It's a useful tool, just like the internet has been a useful tool. Does it have some negativity to it? Of course, everything has, yes? Mm-hmm. So it's a matter of using it in its proper way, and it's only as good as what you give it.
With that said, so many people are fearful of the negative aspects of AI or of technology in general. I am in the school of thought that we have guardrails on humanity, and we have people like, or groups of archangels and other beings who are watching over us and will not allow us to go too far off the reservation where we will destroy each other or this experiment. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So is that a form of solace that people can take? That there is someone watching over us?
That, and don't give your power away.
Please elaborate.
Technology is here as a service.
Mm-hmm.
All of it. AI, your computer, your tablet, your phone. People get upset about this technology. You're the user. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
And discernment is important. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's an inside-out job, not an outside-in. You have the power to turn it on and off and to use it in the ways you use it. It's not, you're not being told how to use it, are you?
My example has always been that we've had the capability of destroying this planet and everything on it since since World War II.
Yes.
And yet, we haven't, though we came close a bunch of times. That tells me that someone, something, some group, something is watching over us, because, to be honest with you, we should have blown ourselves up so many times over the years. But something's always stopped it. So that's what gives me peace, knowing that there's some guardrails for humanity.
There is. And by the people.
What do you mean?
By the people of the world. Your species.
Mm-hmm.
There's ones that have created this possibility. Yes. They're the ones that will not allow it to happen. And what we're saying now, the political structures will change dramatically in this time. And it's by the people. You're seeing this unrest or upheaval throughout the world politically, not just in the country where you live.
Mm-hmm.
And though it seems negative at this time, it's not. It's the birthing process. And the people will demand the structures. And that will give you solace as well.
Theo, do you have any final messages for humanity?
Yes, when you love yourselves enough, everything changes.
Thanks for watching. Click on one of the videos below to continue your journey, and don't forget to subscribe.